Good day. Thanks for joining us again for the weekly Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Krystal Cameron and Desmond Richards have their say as usual. But first, frankly speaking, the commentary. It's not sexy. Figures often are not sexy, and processes even less so. But the news of the week surely was that a comprehensive compensation review for public sector workers has been completed, and a majority of unions have signed, clearing the way for tens of thousands of government workers to be paid in days under contracts effective April this year. Frankly speaking, it's phenomenal for several reasons, one of which is that the number of bargaining units has been reduced from more than 320, to 16. Two, the benefits, including increased period of paid maternity leave and a new arrangement for paid paternity leave, are part of the agreement. Indeed, the Minister of Finance has indicated that the pace of completion of the review and its readiness for signing 8 months into the financial year are the first steps towards government workers being paid under new contracts when they are due, rather than, as used to be the case, months and even years after agreement. Frankly speaking, I remember a time when 3 years after our one agreement ended, workers were negotiating for a new contract. And I remember too, the strikes, sit-ins, lockouts, sickouts to press for payment against an agreement that should have been implemented months before. But I'm not here focusing on this compensation review, as significant as it is. Instead, I'm using it as a frame of reference to suggest that, frankly speaking, leadership matters. Frankly speaking, some of our enduring problems and perennial issues and social degenerative diseases in the body politic can be fixed for a better life for Jamaica. Take lawlessness and disorder. I'm not putting crime in the picture right now. That has been debated ad nauseum, and this society is, as a friend of mine would say, failing with distinction in dealing with crime. The problem with rank lawlessness and disorder is its unrelenting march that has been overwhelmed the whole country, infected and poisoned every aspect and sphere of life. No less serious than crime, really. But unlike crime and violence, the lawlessness and disorder is not easily quantified with numbers, is not measured thus. All we know, and all of us know, that Jamaica is becoming a wretched place to live. We know that our public spaces are increasingly chaotic and ugly and disorderly. We know our interactions one with the other are crude and even brutish. And that's even from those who should serve others, whether in our hospitals, or at the bank's door, or at the municipal corporation, or at the police station. If you think hard about it, think about what exists, you'll see, frankly speaking, that it's a failure of leadership, a failure of departments and agencies and institutions and people who lead them. Some of them are clear. For example, frankly speaking, it's lack of leadership that has created a public transport system that demonstrated again last week and demonstrates regularly that it has built-in crudity, inefficiency, and chaos, demonstrated repeatedly that it is a law-breaking, run-jostle disservice to the poor people of Jamaica. Not a single transport minister, not a single public administration has approved or approached the necessary and obvious reforms for the public transport sector. And an agency, the Transport Authority, that's responsible at least for the rural part of the system, has failed, as I've said, spectacularly failed in its obligation. And we know, don't we, why our roadways have become pathways to death for so many. Why this speeding, undertaking, using soft shoulder, converting turn lanes to straight ahead. Why the illegal use of colored and flashing lights? Why all that is growing? Don't we know who has failed? Which department has failed? Which unit of government is responsible? It's leadership. And I'll tell you where the transformation, such as has been effected by Nigel Clarke, should start in the jungle out there. Now to Desmond Richards.
Well, the issue of landlessness in Jamaica has been removed off the front pages and is now at the back page of public opinion since just weeks after the Prime Minister, the government, bulldozed a number of landless people in St. Catherine. Following the Prime Minister's disclosure that gangs are involved in the selling of lands over in St. Catherine, the principal of a school in his constituency was arrested. We await the court to decide the fate of that principal. But what is being done about the 1 million, over 1 million landless persons in Jamaica? What is being done about that? The PNP, through its opposition, through its spokesperson, Senator Floyd Murray, said a future PNP government will, as part of its policy, ensure that landlessness is regularized in the country. Well, we have to hold them to that. But in the meantime, what is the government saying? Nothing. We have not heard anything further, while people, 1 million and over, remain without land in the country. This is a major political, economic, and social issue. Landlessness is a big issue for black people in this country. They are the ones who are feeling the pinch of the economic situation. They have no land. And as a result of having no land, their voice in the political, social, and economic decision-making of the country is virtually nil. We have to ensure that the landlessness is put on the agenda of the government and it remains there until it is solved. The sons and daughters of ex-slaves cannot remain as they are without land and, as they like to use the term, to be squatting. Landlessness must be addressed today.
That's Desmond Richards, journalist and founder of Rebel Radio. Now to Krystal Cameron.
Somehow Sometimes I feel so lost and powerless. And then when I try to communicate my discontent, I'm frustrated by the utter lack of power that I actually do have. I've always been too intense for my own good. That's just the truth. But the COVID situation, the fact that you can still go onto government websites stating the COVID vaccine will stop the transmission of the disease, and so we all need to be vaccinated so that we can stop the transmission. That's already been disproved. Only idiots still believe that. That's a fact that's flown over most people's heads. It really is suffocating when you feel as though you are neck deep in idiots. From governance come all the way down. I see young children wearing their masks on the roadside by themselves in the sun. They can't even step foot on their high school campus without wearing a mask. Why though? To prevent the spread. The information we got in the beginning, which proved to have been the accurate information, is that N95 masks are somewhat effective, but the cloth masks, just toss it and save yourself the trouble and stop wearing around this cloth on your face that is teeming with germs and all sorts of different bacteria. Never mind the studies that showed that children don't contract COVID at anywhere near the rates of adults, and the majority of children who contract COVID remain asymptomatic. The vaccine that does not stop the spread. No, we still need to tell everybody to go and get vaccinated, and we still need to have the children masked because we are stopping the spread. The question then on my mind is, it's been over 2 years, it's 2.5 years now. If the mask can't come off now after 2.5 years, when will the mask be able to come off? When will the mask mandate be able to drop from school, and what reason will you give for it then? Because the reasons for it now don't make any sense. And I called the high school, I tried to call 5, but of course I got no answers from the other 4. Asked about the mask mandate, and all I got was this circular logic of they need to wear the mask to stop the spread of COVID. How does the mask stop the spread of COVID? Well, if they wear their mask, they'll stop the spread of COVID. And that's all. That was just a circular logic I got. I asked, what research papers led you to conclude that this mask mandate was essential to protect your students and your staff? Nothing. They couldn't tell me anything because they don't know. Just like when I called around to the health centers here and asked the various coordinators, the head nurses and doctors at these centers, have you seen any information on adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine? No, we haven't seen it. It's been 2.5 years, but we haven't seen it. That is as deep as it goes for these people who you would look at and think are educated and have taken an oath to really care about your well-being. They don't. They're doing a job, getting paid for their job. Don't assume they're smarter than you. Don't assume they care more than you. They certainly do not. Just like you can't assume that these school nurses, principals, and teachers and coordinators are any better or any smarter than you because they're doing something very stupid. I don't understand exactly how it is that you sit a child down in a class where you teach them about the immune system and you teach them about different types of immunity and the immunity that you get when your body gets infected with something and you develop the antibodies to that thing, and then you thereafter are able to resist that so you can't develop a high enough viral load to manifest symptoms. Young people who have masks on their face at the age when they should be exposed to microbes while their immune system and their bodies can actually have the most optimal response to it. How do you explain that? Basically, these are the things that frustrate me. Like, sometimes they frustrate me to the point of tears because the powerlessness. I hate the feeling of powerlessness. I hate the feeling of being ruled over by people who I consider beneath my intelligence.
That's Krystal Cameron, creative and managing director of Krystal Cameron Designs. Endgame. Congrats to Moya Thomas, a veteran in journalism with a lot of experience in electronic media and management. Moya Thomas is now to head the Gleaner's editorial department as editor-in-chief. Ms. Thomas is a level-headed, competent professional who has shown firmness and fairness and integrity in her journalistic work. Big up, Moya. It's World Cup time. Men's Football World Cup. The greatest show on earth. Some of us are inaccessible or unavailable at this time. It's a time when we cleave to a country whose team we support and brook no argument about why our team won't win. Here are my top 3 teams in this order: Belgium, France, and third, the love of most Jamaicans, Brazil. Thank you for sharing this podcast. And if you haven't yet done so, please subscribe. Until then, I'm Franklin McKnight.